The 2025 NBA draft is in the books, and it's time to begin surveying the landscape to see who emerged from the two-night affair holding the best cards. For some franchises, like Denver and Houston, it was a sleepy ordeal. For others, like Brooklyn, it was a chance to establish a course for the future. For many others, it was something in between, as the draft presented a chance to enhance what's already in place amid the never-ending pursuit of playoff success. One particularly unique element to the 2025 draft is that two of the franchises with top 3 picks are in win-now mode. Dallas, which selected Cooper Flagg number 1 overall, has Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, and Klay Thompson under contract. Philadelphia, which took VJ Edgecombe at number 3, is led by stars Joel Embiid and Paul George. Thus, their draft picks will be looked at to make winning contributions early, especially in the case of Flagg and Dallas. Inevitably, time will produce the true reflection of how each team performed in the draft, and the whole picture may not be clear until years down the road. But in the draft's immediate aftermath, we're making our grading assessments of how each franchise performed. Here are our grades for every team in the draft, taking into account each player they landed in the 2025 NBA draft. Hey there, welcome everybody to this very special edition of TXN Sports World. It is our annual NBA Draft Recap Show. This is the 2025 edition. I am your host, Anthony Florio, joined as always by good old MF Michael Fletcher. We are awaiting the presence of Michael Bullock. If he should come in, we will catch him up on what he missed. If not, then we will hopefully have him back with us next week when we resume our content. We'll have more on that at the end of the show. Another NBA draft, and for the first time ever, not one, but 2 nights. Never been done before. They did it this year at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, on ESPN. It was also simulcast on ABC the first night, second night exclusively on ESPN. And without any further ado, let's not waste any more time. Let's dive into all of our teams here. 2 teams we will be bypassing. Those 2 teams are the Denver Nuggets and the Houston Rockets. When it's supposed to be their turn, we will bypass them, for they did not have any picks either side. So with that being said, let's dive on into our first team. Alphabetical order as always, and we started off with the Atlanta Hawks. They only had 1 pick, and they selected Asa Newell from the Maine and Georgia Bulldogs. Atlanta traded back 10 spots and still landed a high upside front court player in Asa Newell, who should have an opportunity to carve out an early role. Newell brings enough size and toughness to potentially log some time at the 5, but his long-term home could be as a physical stretch 4. Regardless, he showed enough upside as a perimeter shooter during his lone season at Georgia to make this a solid value play for Atlanta. The deal with New Orleans to move back to number 23 also landed the Hawks an unprotected 2026 first-round pick, which could end up paying massive dividends a year from now. A+ is my grade for this pick, so not much more to say. Good old MF Michael Fletcher, come on in. Asa Newell, the lone pick for the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, he was the lone pick, and I partial disagreement. I'm going to give it an A, not an A+, but an A. I thought they did a really good job. I think they got the right guy that they needed it to get out of all the draft picks that they did, and I thought they did really well. So, yeah, I'll give this one a solid A, and nothing more to say. Anthony, it is yours.
All right, MF, and our next team happens to be Michael Bullock's team, the Boston Celtics. And with their picks, they selected Hugo Gonzalez out of Spain, Amari Williams from Kentucky, and Max Shulga from VCU. All right, MF, how did Bullock Celtics do?
All right. Hugo Gonzalez would have made more sense for Boston as a stash pick who would come later in his development. Instead, Brad Stevens indicated that the Celtics has a plan to bring him into the NBA next season. On the broadcast, Gonzalez was compared to Christian Barnum of the Denver Nuggets. One key difference is that of the shooting. He hits 38% from 3-point range in college, but Gonzalez shoots 27% from Real Madrid, where he plays in Spain. Williams is an intriguing prospect with multiple strengths as a rebounder and rim protector and a facilitator on the elbow, but he shoots 54% careers on the twos, which is very poor for a center and doesn't stretch the floor as much. Their last pick projected a best model in a model because of his 39% 3-point shooting. Look, don't get me wrong. I think the Celtics are doing has done really well, but I really think with the moves that they're making now, with the indication and with Jason Tatum now gone because of that Achilles injury, I really think Boston's kind of packing it in. I hate to do it, but I'm going to do it. C plus for the Boston Celtics. Anthony, it is yours.
Okay. Forgot to mention a little disclaimer here, and that is there will be some disagreements. Maybe there will be some agreements, but there will be disagreements. There was one on the last one, and there's going to be one on this one again. Boston took a swing on the long-term upside of an international wing with good positional size. Hugo Gonzalez has few discernible offensive skills to tout at this stage in his career. So don't be surprised if he spends a chunk of time in the G League early on. But he's only 19 and has a floor built on his motor and defensive versatility. If the shooting and playmaking come along, Gonzalez could pan out as a rotation-level addition for a franchise in need of low-cost labor. Another disagreement here, solid B is my grade for the Boston Celtics. So with that being said, let's move on to our next team, the hometown team, the Brooklyn Nets. And bear with me, they had a lot of picks, all in the first round. They had 5 of them. And forgive me if I butcher the pronunciation of some of these names. Igor Demine from BYU, Nolan Traore from France, Drake Powell from North Carolina, Ben Saraf out of Israel, and Danny Wolf out of Michigan. All right. What are the Nets cooking here? For starters, Igor Demine at number 8 is not a huge reach, but it seemed like Cayman Malak out of Duke, who was a popular player linked to Brooklyn at that spot, would have made more sense. Brooklyn drafted 3 guards with similar archetypes. None of them can shoot. The Nolan Traore pick is interesting. I like his upside and top-end speed, but he's not a shooter either. Brooklyn's best pick was drafting Danny Wolf. Wolf is a lot like Houston Rockets star Alperen Sengun. The bottom line is, if you're going to take 5 players in the first round, you should come away with at least a handful of starters. I don't know if that's the case here. Brooklyn is not afraid to take swings, and you have to respect it. But this was pretty underwhelming. The Nets, and who knows if they could have done this, were better off consolidating some of their draft picks to move around in the first round. One of my losers of the draft, no question about it. Heck, I can make an argument that they were my biggest loser in the draft, but they're definitely one of the big losers of this draft for sure. I'm going to bring the hammer on this one. D+, my grade for the Brooklyn Nets. Very underwhelming, at least in my opinion. MF, what says you?
The Nets' record-setting volume of first-round selections is almost more important than the possession standpoint than the picks. The reason I give high marks to them was the trades to acquire them. Brooklyn is betting on development, remarkable number of teenagers, many skilled and overlap skill sets. Denham and Theodore shares a lot of the traits of strong playmakers whose size, whose shooting and scoring efficiency needs work. They can play together defensively, but spacing the floor with those groups can prove challenging. Drafting so many raw players should help the Nets' efforts in the lottery in 2026. But last year they controlled their first round pick before Houston got it in 2027. Slight disagreement. I give it a C plus for the Brooklyn Nets. So Anthony, it's yours.
Fair enough. And we move on to our next team, the Charlotte Hornets. And here's who they selected with their picks. Oh, and Matt, you're gonna love two of these picks. Con Kneppel from Duke, Liam McNeely out of UConn, Sion James, also from Duke, and Big East Defensive Player of the Year, Ryan Kalkbrenner out of Creighton. MF, I'm going to be honest with you. This was one of my winners of the NBA draft. I don't know about you.
All right. I'll go with this. Cue the jokes about the Hornets' persistence of drafting players from the research triangle. But Kneppel was second on the projection and perfectly fills the void as shooting guard for the team. Although the same can be true for Trey Johnson, Kneppel is far more effective scorer in Duke and rated better by the metrics than Johnson in large oddball role in the Nike EYBL. Selected McNally, who fits a similar mold and was probably the best available pick after he dropped well below his expectation in the early 20 range. I was less enamored with them taking James, another Duke, high in the second round. Strict role player from 5 seasons. James was never usually usage rate was nothing higher than 17.1%. After Charlotte traded starting center Mark Williams, there might be an opening for Camembert to calibrate to contribute immediately with his high pick and roll defense up to the speed. I'm gonna say it's not a big winner, but I'll give it a solid B plus for the Charlotte Hornets. I thought they did great. I'm not as overly excited as you are, Florio, about Charlotte. So it's yours.
Understandable. All right. Charlotte ranked 28th in three-point shooting percentage at 33.9% last season. And its top shooter by percentage, Seth Curry, is an unrestricted free agent. But have no fear because there is plenty of perimeter marksmanship on the way. Kneppel and Liam McNeely are two of the best shooters in the class, and both bring solid positional size and playmaking upside. McNeely is a particularly strong value at number 29, after an injury-hampered freshman season at UConn served to muddy the waters on a former five-star prospect with lottery-level talent. Charlotte quietly did well in the second round also by snagging two older college players with the physical attributes to compete for NBA roles. For me, one of my winners of the draft, solid A for the Charlotte Hornets. And we move on now to the Chicago Bulls. And here's who they selected with their picks. They only had two. Noah Essengue from France and Lachlan Olbrich from Australia. Chicago took the first swing on a player with no collegiate tape by going for a toolsy and athletic European wing and Noah Essengue, who has loads of defensive potential and a questionable offensive profile. Essengue has done most of his scoring damage in transition and at the rim while playing in Germany's top pro division and will need to refine his offensive skill set. This pick has shades of what Chicago did by taking Matas Buzelis at number 11 last year, which is working out well. Essengue is a bit more raw offensively, but brings more defensive upside. For the Chicago Bulls, I give the grade of B plus for the Chicago Bulls. MF, what says you? Chicago Bulls, our team. Here we go.
I'm intrigued by how Essengue will fit with the 2024 lottery pick, Matas Buzelis. Another young combo forward. If they shoot well together and play together as a forward, Buzelis bulks up enough to play center at times. They give Chicago a combination of strength at the length and athleticism. Credit to the Bulls for taking the best available player and continuing to draft young despite the resistance to bottoming out and picking higher in the lottery. Now, I partially disagree. I give this an A minus. I thought Chicago did very well. Two guys who were best available players at the time. I thought they did well. Especially for Asengwe, who literally fell on their laps. I'm good with that. The table looks pretty good for him as well. So I'm intrigued by Chicago. I'm intrigued. So Florio, it's yours.
All right, Ahmet, let's move on to our next team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the best record in the Eastern Conference last season, and they had two selections, and they selected Tyrese Proctor out of Duke and Saliu Enyang from Italy. All right, MF, Cleveland. They got another one of those spark plugs for the Dukies last season. Tyrese Proctor and the young man from Italy. How did Cleveland do?
Cleveland didn't get on the clock until well into the second night of the draft and landed an interesting prospect in Tyrese Proctor, who continues to develop one of the one and done hype. But Proctor shot 40.5% from 3-point range last season and showed promise on the ball defender. Though he could improve his steal rate, Nang is a stash pick facing longer odds because of his shooting. He only shoots 26% on the three in career, and a career foul line and a career 71% from the foul line. I give this a B. Florio, go.
Yeah, it was a quiet draft for Cleveland, which did not have a first round pick. The Cavaliers entered last Thursday's second round with picks number 49 and number 58 and used them to take a combo guard from Duke and Tyrese Proctor and a flyer on Senegalese wing Saliu Enyang. Proctor was once a celebrated prospect who is a good value at number 49. Partial disagreement. You gave it a solid B. I'm giving it a B plus for the Cleveland Cavaliers. The closest we've had to an agreement so far here tonight. And we move on to the team that had the number one overall pick in the NBA draft, the Dallas Mavericks. And, well, they only had one selection. It was the number one overall selection. And it was arguably the best player in college basketball last season from the Duke Blue Devils, none other than Cooper Flagg. Easiest grade right here. We know what we think. We know what everybody thinks about Cooper Flagg as a prospect. He's a true two-way game-wrecking forward capable of being the face of the franchise for the next decade. That is if Dallas general manager Nico Harrison doesn't trade him for a veteran in 2030 or so. It's better to be lucky than good. The Mavs situation looked bleak until the franchise's trajectory quite literally changed overnight by winning the draft lottery. Flagg is the best college prospect since his teammate in Dallas, Anthony Davis. Definitely a winner of the draft. You could say, literally, you can make an argument that they were maybe the winners of the draft because they got the best player in the game, in the college game, no question about it. A plus for the Dallas Mavericks. MF, your boy, Cooper Flagg, number one to the Dallas Mavericks, and we already know how you feel about him.
Yeah, I'm very high on Cooper Flagg. This is a solid A. This was an excellent pick. The guy is otherworldly. This is why a lot of people were so excited when he was, when Duke had him. You saw why he was the real deal. You saw why everybody was saying, oh, this guy's gonna be the number one overall pick. And to see it, to hear Adam Silver make that announcement, we knew it was obvious, we knew it was gonna happen, but just to hear it happen and the reaction he got and just the excitement, I'm beyond pleased. I wish him nothing but the best. Um, good luck, Cooper. I hope you kill it in Dallas. I hope you do, man. Uh, Thank you for your service. Thank you for everything you did for the Duke Blue Devils that year. You gave us a magical run. You gave us a hell of a run, and we're so honored that you're one of us. Hey, you made us one of the most popular teams in NCAA history. That's something I could never say. Anthony, the hatred that a lot of fans have for Duke.
Absolutely.
More than any other. We're probably we're like public enemy number one. And with guys like Con Knipple, Tyrese Proctor, guys like Cooper Flag, fans actually got behind the Blue Devils. It was odd to finally be the baby faces after being the heels for so many years. So thank you, Cooper. Thank you for what you did, and good luck, man. I'll be rooting for you on the sidelines, except for the days that you play against the Chicago Bulls. Then sorry, bro.
Absolutely.
But it's all yours, Anthony.
And well, here comes the first NA of the night, the Denver Nuggets. They did not have a pick due to trade obligations, so we bypassed the 2023 NBA champions. So we move on now to the Detroit Basketball Pistons. And here's who they selected with their picks. They had only one pick. And they selected Chaz Lanier out of Tennessee. So, MF, Chaz Lanier, how did Detroit basketball do here?
I think Detroit did all right. I'm gonna give them a B. Much like their fellow Tennessee star, Dalton Connect, Lanier bloomed late. He going for 4.7 in North Florida in the 2022-2023, averaging 18 points per game in the SEC last season. He's a big-time shooter, 40% from three-point range, with a size who gives the Pistons the insurance if they can't be able to re-sign either Malik Beasley or Tim Hardaway Jr. Oh, by the way, they weren't able to. But I'll give them a solid B for what it's worth. So, Florio, it is yours.
You can never have too much shooting, and Detroit added one of the best catch-and-shoot prospects in the class early in the second round. Chaz Lanier will turn 24 during his rookie season. But if he pans out, that means the Pistons will have a player with one of the league's most desired skill sets on a team-friendly deal as cornerstones Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey enter their primes. Partial disagreement. You said solid B. I'm giving it an A- for the Detroit Pistons on this pick. Next up is the Golden State Warriors. They had two picks. They selected Alex Tuhey from Australia, and also selected Will Richard from the national champion Florida Gators. Golden State is unlikely to see much payoff from a quiet draft, but the Warriors will get to take a long look at two back-end selections, including ex-Florida guard Will Richard, who was a vital cog in the Gators' national title run. Solid B is my grade for the Golden State Warriors. So, MF, the Warriors, they got Will Richard. They got a national they got one of the national champions on their team. For me, it's a solid B. What says you when it comes to the Golden State Warriors?
For the first time tonight, we are in agreement. It's a B. Right. Yeah. And it's the same thing. With Alex, shooting is still a work in progress as he hit 31% from the field in the Australian NBL last season, but defensively stood out in a steal and block rate. So, and I've long liked Richard, who was actually a top 30 prospect, and he actually has a high 2-point percentage. So yeah, this was a solid B. Well done. Nothing more to say. Anthony, it's yours.
And now we move on to the other team we'll be bypassing in this NBA draft recap show, the Houston Rockets. The Rockets did not have a pick due to trade obligations. Automatic NA. We move on. And we move on now to the Eastern Conference champion, Indiana Pacers. 2 picks, and they selected Cam Jones from Marquette and Talon Peter out of Liberty. So MF, what's your grade for the Eastern Conference champs?
I thought they did a very good job. Look, they needed to do some things, especially where after losing their big star, Tyrese Halliburton, after rupturing his Achilles in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. But to get Cam Jones and to get Tyron Peter, it's going to be good 2 guys that they can fill that will definitely be perfect fits for the guys. Neither man brings downside at all, as both men has definitely played their ways into the great spot to fill the gaps. Especially Peter, who's actually started his career in Division II Arkansas Tech, and is a fascinating swing. The guard play that he'll have like 1 assist as a senior at Liberty, but how can you pass up a guy who shoots 76% from twos, 45% from threes? But I think there's no bad downside on this, because that's the 2 areas that Indiana has also do, and the great pressure defense that both men bring is gonna be an absolute gem for them. Anthony, this is one of my winners of the draft night. An A for the Eastern Conference champions, the Indiana Pacers.
Solid A. Another partial disagreement here. The Pacers struck gold with an undersized veteran college guard in 2022 when they picked Andrew Nembhard. Indiana is going down a similar path here by taking a second-round swing on Marquette's Cam Jones. The crafty lefty is a natural-born scorer who also took on primary ball-handling duties for the Golden Eagles last season. Partial disagreement, it's a B+ for the Eastern Conference champion Indiana Pacers. We now move on to our Los Angeles teams, and the first of the 2, the Los Angeles Clippers. And with their picks, they selected Yannick Conan Niederhauser, say that 3 times fast, Yannick Conan Niederhauser out of Penn State, and Kobe Sanders out of Nevada. The Clippers scooped up the Big Ten's leader in blocks per game at 2.3 with the final pick of the first round. Yannick Conan Niederhauser turns 23 during his rookie season and demonstrated no floor stretching capabilities in college. But as a long and explosive athlete, he's a great lob threat and rim protector whose development arc is still on the upswing. Another one of my winners of the draft here, A- for the Los Angeles Clippers. MF, what says you?
Oh no. Oh no.
Disagreement.
Absolute disagreement. This is one of my biggest losers. In the second round pick, I could buy the value prostration of a late bloomer Niederhauser. With an outstanding shot blocker and grows into a scoring threat after transferring to Penn State. But taking him as a first rounder is a little tough sell, as he was a below average defensive rebounder and posted more than assists, more many as assists as turnovers. Sanders was a late bloomer as well, not having average double figure scoring until his 4th year. My projection is he'll wait. He has more weight on earlier in the college season and typically stands easily out as typically a better indicator. Nah, Anthony, C minus for the Los Angeles Clippers. So, Anthony, it's yours.
And we move on to the other Los Angeles team, the Los Angeles Lakers. One selection, and they selected Adu Theoro out of Arkansas. MF, you're great for the Lakers in this pick.
Zero steal and block rate suggests that defensive potential, if he can make enough outside shots to stay on the court. Zero is actually a career 28% three-point shooter. But the thing is that you got to give credit for the Lakers for moving up from 55 to 36. Now, remember, this was a trade that was made with the Chicago Bulls earlier in the day. So this was the Bulls pick, and then they moved them for cash for Thero to go number 36. This was a very good move for the Los Angeles Lakers. B plus is my rating for this pick. Anthony, it's yours.
The Lakers worked the phones last Thursday and traded their way into the draft at number 36, where they selected one of the 5 best athletes in the entire draft class in Arkansas wing Adu Theoro. Considering that little was lost in the move to get here, the Lakers get some credit for taking a low-risk swing on a player who could provide low-cost depth. Theoro will have to improve as a three-point shooter to find a long-term home in the league, but if he does, watch out. The physical tools and defensive upside are tantalizing. Another one of my winners of the draft, solid A, is my grade for this pick for the Los Angeles Lakers. Next up is the Memphis Grizzlies, and they selected 3, and they had 3 selections. They selected Cedric Coward out of Washington State, Javon Small from West Virginia, and Jamai Mashik out of Tennessee. Memphis traded up from number 16 and parted with a 2028 first-round pick via Orlando and 2 future second-round picks in order to make sure it got Cedric Coward or Coward. It was an aggressive play, but there is plenty to like about Coward, who brings 3-and-D upside along with tremendous length and athleticism. Coward's maturity and age, he'll be 22 as a rookie, and are good traits for a Memphis team trying to capitalize on its competitive window with Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. The pick itself is worthy of an A, but parting with a future first rounder to make it happen takes it down a bit. I was initially going to give it an A, but I'm dropping it down to a B plus. Original A, but the fact that they had to trade away a first rounder to do it, I got to drop it down to a B plus. But it's still a solid draft for the Memphis Grizzlies. MF, what says you?
You know what, Anthony? I kind of feel the same way, but I'm actually punishing them even harder because of that first round draft pick. I am giving them a C minus. It went from a B to a C. So, like how you went from an A to a B, I'm going from a B to a C. And it's because of that giving up that first round draft pick. I think that was a major mistake. I think they should not have done it. I think they could have done something better with it more than anything else, even though their value was all right. But still, getting rid of that first round draft pick, you got to punish them some way, somehow. So nothing more to say. Anthony, it's yours.
All right, MF, let's move on to our next team, the Miami Heat. 1 pick, and they selected Kasparis Jakusianis from Illinois. MF, what grade do you have for Miami for this pick?
All right, for Jakuis, is an imperfect prospect. His steal and block rates are troubling low, and struggles with turnovers in his lone season at Illinois. But this feels like an overcorrection for a player who is ranked in the top 10 much of the year, and Miami took advantage of basically the draft coming down. So basically, he fell down. Everybody thought of him as a top 10 prospect, and he started slipping. And now Miami, it basically fell right to Miami's laps at number 20. A minus, a winner. Miami Heat, winner. in this draft. Florio, go.
Slight disagreement. Kasparis Jakusionis was regarded as a potential top 10 selection for much of his freshman season at Illinois. The Lithuanian playmaker is a tremendous value for Miami at number 20, and it would be no shock if he has a better career than Jeremiah Fears at number 7 or Igor Demine at number 8, both of whom are lead guards who were selected in the top 10. You said A minus, MF? I'm actually going to go a little higher on this. Not by much. Solid A is my pick for is my grade for this. So slight partial smidgen disagreement here. Solid A is my grade for Miami. Moving on now to the Milwaukee Bucks. One pick, and they selected Bogoljub Markovic out of Serbia. The Bucks selected Bogoljub Markovic in the middle of the second round. He is going to be stashed overseas and will not play for the Bucks next season. Markovic was the number 50 overall player on the big board, and this is a long-term play. So it's hard to put a ton of stock in this pick either way. Solid C for the Milwaukee Bucks. One of my, I'm not going to say one of the biggest losers, but we'll say one of the disappointments of the NBA draft. Solid C for Milwaukee. MF, what do you say?
I disagree. I gave it a solid B. No prospect the Bucks could have had drafted at the 47th pick was going to alter the future of Giannis Antetokounmpo. Markovic scores effectively in his first full season, shooting around 61% from twos, 37% from threes. Though he has a low steal to block rate, raises defensive questions. This is still a solid B regardless.
Okay. So with that, we move on. I believe it is the Minnesota Timberwolves up next. Two selections. They selected Jean Berenger from France and Rocco Zakarski out of Australia. MF, your grade for Minnesota.
B minus. I thought they did an all right job. I thought, with Zarkowski, I think it's going to be an all right fit. He is a 7'3" guy that, you could say that he'll need to be developed more. But Berenger is actually not bad. He also was a high risk, high reward type thing. I just feel like he's going to be a solid player, nothing too great. But, it's going to be more that Berenger may be the future guy that's going to take over for Rudy Gobert once Gobert leaves, either retires or decides to go on to another team. But this would be a nice little fill-in. But he still needs he's still a little greener on the side. So give him a couple of years, but I think it's going to be a solid pick once it's all said and done. It is a B minus for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Anthony, it's yours.
Another smidgen of a disagreement here. You said B minus, I say B plus. The Timberwolves took a swing by drafting French big man Jean Berenger in the middle of the first round. Berenger is an extremely raw prospect who needs time to develop, but there is a lot to like when watching his film. He is capable of being a solid rim runner and help side defender in the NBA. Zakarski is a fun second round pick also. So a small disagreement here, smidgen disagreement here. B plus is my grade for the Minnesota Timberwolves. We move on now to the New Orleans Pelicans. 3 selections, and they selected Jeremiah Fears out of Oklahoma, Derek Queen out of Maryland, and Micah Peavy out of Georgetown. All right, let me say it like this. Before diving into the selections and, how they fit and all that, I got to be honest here. I got to say that the Pelicans made one of the most stunning draft night trades ever. Giving up an unprotected first-round pick to move up 10 spots is malpractice. Furthermore, that pick is for the 2026 draft, which is going to be loaded. I don't like the process, but I like the individual picks. Jeremiah Fears is a fun player, but he has boom or bust written all over him. He needs to develop as a shooter to reach his full potential. Derek Queen is a skilled offensive big man and was certainly worthy of a top 10 pick, but it wasn't worth it when factoring in what the Pelicans had to give up. If both players hit and the pick next year is in the 20s, it'll be worth it. But for right now, one of my disappointments of the draft, C plus is the best I can go for the New Orleans Pelicans. C plus, MF, what do you say?
No, Anthony, I'm about to go worse. They're the biggest losers. They're my losers. What they did was absolutely asinine. You never should have done that. And for the risk and the reward that they try to get, nah. This was a complete and utter failure, and I'm giving it an F. That is my grade for the New Orleans Pelicans. They were the biggest losers in the NBA draft for me. Just like I don't remember what team was your biggest loser up to this point. I know it was early. I don't remember what team because you slammed them hard.
Oh yeah, the team that I gave a D plus to.
Yeah, I don't remember what team it was. I know it was early in the draft. I know it was
It was Brooklyn.
It was Brooklyn. This is my Brooklyn here. New Orleans. This is an F for me. So, Florio, it's yours.
Whoa, baby. Okay. Moving on to our next team, and they are the New York Knicks. One selection. Mohamed Diawara out of France. MF, are you going to slam the Knicks like you just slammed the Pelicans?
If you say a C plus is slamming, then yeah, okay. But he hasn't fully been developed yet, so give him some time. He does average 5.8. That's a little concerning, but he might be one of those where they might stash him, let him play in France, let him develop, maybe send him to the G League to develop his skills, and maybe it might work down the line. But for now, it's a C plus. So Florio, it's yours.
Small disagreement here. I'll get to it in a moment. Mohamed Diawara is a 6'8" French wing with a 7'4" wingspan. It's hard to see him playing any rotation minutes for the Knicks in the short or long term. It's unclear whether or not he will be joining New York this upcoming season. Solid C. It's a solid C from New York. So, small partial disagreement here. Solid C. And we move on now to your brand new, reigning, defending, undisputed NBA champion, Oklahoma City Thunder. And here's who they selected. Two selections. They selected Thomas Sorber out of Georgetown and Brooks Barnhizer out of Northwestern. Oklahoma City picked up an incredibly long and defensively active big man who does not turn 20 until December. Thomas Sorber will need to develop an offensive identity, but he should have plenty of time to do that within a well-established franchise that has its nucleus set for the next couple of seasons. There should be no rush to get Sorber on the floor, but there's plenty to like about his long-term potential as a high-level rim protector and overall defender. One of my winners of the draft, solid A for the NBA champion, Oklahoma City Thunder. MF, how did our new champs do?
They did pretty good. I'm gonna give it a B because I think they did fine. Because, like you said, they don't need to rush these guys right away. You're the NBA World Champions. Your nucleus is set. You got a lot of good young talent coming down the pipeline. So I'm not gonna say that this is gonna be a something to really divide on. But I really think that this could be really good. So yeah, I'm gonna give this a B for the champions. Florio, is yours.
Next team is we have our next team, and they are the Orlando Magic, and they had two picks, and they selected Jace Richardson out of Michigan State and Noah Penda out of France. MF, your grade for the Orlando Magic.
B plus. I thought they did a very good job. I really love the Richardson pick. He was projected in the lottery, and he actually fell. that he fell right to the laps of Orlando, and I think Orlando is definitely not gonna be too mad about that. They're probably gonna be very pleased. Richards, and then Orlando did pay a hard price to trade up, giving up the 46th and the 57th pick and 2 future second rounders. That's a little bit of a reach in my thought. But to get Noah Panda, I think is a nice fit. But the value just to get him, I think that I got to give this a B plus. I was gonna give it an A, but I gotta punish him for that overreach on that second round pick. If they would have just stuck with Richardson, that's an A. They would have been one of my winners. But I gotta punish them with a B plus because I really think they kind of quote unquote screwed the pooch when they went with Noah Panda just because of what they gave up draft capital wise, just to get him. So Florio, it's yours.
I believe this is only the second time tonight we actually have an exact agreement here. We actually agree on this one, MF. I also have B plus as my grade for the Orlando Magic, and here's my reasoning for it. Jace Richardson is a small combo guard who shot 41% from three-point range while showing playmaking upside as a freshman. He's a left-hand dominant player who needs to diversify his offensive repertoire. Opponents will be eager to attack Richardson defensively until he can prove his size and pedestrian length won't be a hindrance on that end. If he's up to the challenge, Richardson's maturity and pedigree, his father played in the NBA, could help him to a long NBA career. Orlando also moved up last Thursday night to number 32, only giving up some second-round picks to do it, and selected a French forward in Noah Penda, who could be a gritty connector capable of playing a rotational role for a franchise on the rise. For only the second time tonight, MF and I actually agree on our grades. I too have B plus for the Orlando Magic. Next up, the Philadelphia 76ers. And they had 2 picks, and they selected VJ Edgecombe from Baylor with the number 3 overall pick, and one of the best players in the SEC last season, Janai Broome out of Auburn. Oh, yes. The draft's intrigue started with Philadelphia at number 3. The 76ers passed the test by drafting a player in VJ Edgecombe, one of the top prospects in this class outside of Cooper Flagg. He has real star potential as a two-way player. The athleticism is evident, and he will have an opportunity to play a key role on a team that needs to take a jump back to the playoffs in 2026. The 76ers could have gone with Ace Bailey, but after he canceled his pre-draft workout, it looked unlikely it would happen. Edgecombe was the best player on the board. Janai Broome should add front court depth to the 76ers. Another one of my winners of this draft. Solid A for the Philadelphia 76ers. MF, what says you?
Partial disagreement, but it's only a partial. B plus for Philadelphia. I really loved what they did. They were a little ahead of Concanipple. They could have taken Concanipple here, but they did get a good guy who fit very nicely. And then their second pick, Whit Broom, I think was going to be a solid pickup. I mean, nothing too amazing, but I think they're going to do really well. B plus for me, Anthony. Next team.
And Janai Broome, one of the best players, one of the top players in the SEC, and a part of that awesome Auburn team from last season. So
yeah,
he's definitely one to watch for. All right, next up we have the Phoenix Suns, and they had 3 selections. Kaman Malak out of Duke.
Now it's Kaman Malawach from Duke.
Kaman Malawach out of Duke. Yeah, like I said, I apologize for some of the butchering of the names.
Don't worry, I got you on the Dukies. I got you on the Dukies.
I know you do. And he was one of the big cogs of that run last year, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, I know. Also, they selected Rashir Fleming out of St. Joseph's. and Kobe Bray or Brea from Kentucky.
Brea.
Kobe
Yep.
Brea out of Kentucky. Sounds like another winner here, MF.
In a sense, yes, but also not so much. Here's the reason why I'm only giving them a B though. Uh, a Duke center falls into the front court needy Suns, who strangely traded acquired former Duke center Mark Williams uh, in a deal graded separately. Worth no worth It's worth wondering, particularly in that context, whether Phoenix could have gotten value trading down, but the team that was behind them. But as much as Malawach was a top prospect on the board, it probably made more sense for Phoenix to stay pat. They used future picks to move up in the second round to 41 to take St. Joseph's forward Fleming. Though he was projected number 12 in many of the mock drafts, Fleming gives Phoenix some quality shot blocking and at minds or range. Brea is a shooting guard who's on a team overloaded with them. Phoenix could use his shooting, but he is more of a high skill projection as a shooter than any other guy, just in case if they do decide to get rid of Grayson Allen. It is a solid B for me for Phoenix. So, Anthony, it is yours.
Phoenix completely remade its front court in a matter of minutes by trading for Mark Williams and drafting Kaman Malawach. Getting the towering Duke center at number 10 was a steal for the Suns, who also moved off the number 29 pick in the move for Williams. Though Malawach's offensive game is limited to finishing at the rim for now, it would be no surprise if he ends up as the top rim protector in the class. The Suns also capitalized on Rasheer Fleming's availability at number 31 by moving up 5 spots in the second round to snag an intriguing, lengthy forward with a first-round upside. It's a partial disagreement. For me, another one of my winners of this draft. Solid A for the Phoenix Suns. Moving on to our next team, the Portland Trailblazers. And they only had one selection, Hansen Yang out of China. I'm sorry, another one of my losers here. Right up there with Brooklyn. You know, we've been watching and following the draft for quite some time, but this pick is one of the biggest draft surprises. Yang Hansen was a projected mid to late second round pick, and Portland picked him at 16. Not only that, but Portland already has money and previous draft capital tied up to centers in DeAndre Ayton and Donovan Clingan, last year's number 7 overall pick. I'm not overreacting because maybe this guy is the next NBA star, but with all due respect, I feel like it's a massive reach. This will either age as one of the best picks in draft history or one of the worst. Right up there with the Brooklyn Nets, one of my biggest losers of this draft. Another D+. D+ for the Portland Trailblazers. Another one of my losers. MF, what says you?
Not as harsh as D+, but you are almost there. It's a slight disagreement. I gave it a C-, and it's for all the reasons that you alluded to. That Hansen pick is horrible. This guy's a second round draft pick, and you take him at 16. It's an absolute reach, and this was a bad draft for them. So yeah, I totally agree with what you said. C- for me. Anthony, let's get to Sacramento.
Sacramento Kings are next, indeed. And here are their, and they had 2 picks, and they selected Nick Clifford out of Colorado State and Maxime Reynaud out of Stanford. MF, your grade for the Sacramento Kings.
Not as great as as what Portland did, but I'm still in the C range with them. I thought they did it's passable. It's not, there wasn't anything amazing about it. There was anything that would give me a thing. Clifford's more of a lower end scout. He didn't emerge as a serious prospect until much later in his career, and there wasn't really much high value on any of the picks. I think they were just there They weren't anything spectacular. C for me. C's my grade for Sacramento. Anthony, it's yours.
No. Definitely a disagreement on this one. You may not be as high on them as I am, MF, but I'm going to tell you why. One of the worst kept secrets in league circles leading up to the draft was that the Sacramento Kings wanted to get in on the action at the end of the first round. Sacramento traded a protected first-round pick in 2027 via the San Antonio Spurs to move to number 24 to draft Nick Clifford, one of the best rebounders in the class. Clifford is versatile and will fill an immediate need for more wing defenders in Sacramento. Definitely a solid value here. And Reynaud was also a projected first rounder, and he landed at 42. I'm sorry, this is one of my winners another one of my winners here. Solid A for the Sacramento Kings. And speaking of the San Antonio Spurs, they're up next. 2 picks. They had the number 2 overall pick, and they used it on Dylan Harper out of Rutgers, and they also selected Carter Bryant out of Arizona. The Spurs crushed this draft. San Antonio made the no-brainer decision to prioritize talent over fit by selecting Dylan Harper, and then followed it up by taking Carter Bryant, a 3-and-D wing with tremendous potential. The priority should be stacking talent and then figuring out the fit later. Another home run draft for San Antonio. Another one of my winners. They're right up there with Dallas as far as winners go. A+ for the San Antonio Spurs. MF, what says you?
I'm not going to say A+. It is a solid A, but they are the winners of the draft. I totally agree with that assessment. They're right there with Miami for me. I had Miami as one of the big winners, and I also had Indiana as one of my big winners in this draft. Those are, and then obviously Chicago was there. That's my 4th team, and then Atlanta was my 5th. So that's my top 5 winners in this draft, but San Antonio is definitely there. They make so much logical sense and tremendous. And this is why San Antonio is one of the class organizations in the NBA. Yes, it's sad that Greg Popovich is leaving the coaching ranks, but he still is also a great general manager, a great president of basketball operations. And, he's no longer a coach, but he's still a part of that front office. And if he controlling the draft, he still knows how to do it, man. Danny Ferry was the one guy that did it during those glory years. He was responsible for Manu Ginobili, for Tony Parker, for Leandro Barbosa. He was responsible for starting that dynasty of the San Antonio Spurs with Greg Popovich, and Pops just keeps going. Year after year after year after year. He got Victor Wembanyama at the number 1 overall. He's got this guy at number 2. 2 great picks for the San Antonio Spurs. I'm telling you, watch out. The Spurs could be back in the very near future. They could be a threat again. And if they are, oh boy, it's going to get good when San Antonio's around. A for the Spurs. Florio, it's yours.
We got 3 teams left, MF, and you'll be leading off on our next team, the Toronto Raptors. And they had 2 picks, and they selected Colin Murray Boyles out of South Carolina and Elijah Martin from the national champion Florida Gators. MF, your grade for the Toronto Raptors?
A solid B+ for Toronto. I think they did a very good job. They got the wants, they got the needs, they filled the gaps, and with 2 good players too. Boyle is a sneaky player. He's just going to be a sneaky pick. And then it doesn't go wrong if you grab a guy from the national champions. I mean, especially Elijah Martin, who did pretty good. He's not the best guy out there, but he was a 1st-round talent. He did fall to the 2nd round. So, I mean, not bad. Good pickup on that. So, I give this a solid B plus. I think they did a very good job. So, Anthony, it's yours.
All right, Colin Murray Boyles, one of the players I was very high on in this class. I love his motor and defensive tools. However, I don't know how the fit works in Toronto. I thought the Raptors would be better off prioritizing the center position by drafting Kaman Malawak. Instead, Toronto went with Murray Boyles. The biggest knock on his game is his size, or lack thereof for the position, and his shooting. I don't know how well he fits with the mix of wings / forwards they already have. So, partial disagreement here. Solid B is my grade for the Toronto Raptors. We got two teams left, and next up it is the Utah Jazz. And they selected 3 players. They selected Ace Bailey out of Rutgers with the number 5 overall pick. The NCAA tournament's most outstanding player from the national champion Florida Gators, Walter Clayton Jr. And they also selected John Tonji out of Wisconsin. The Jazz called the bluff from Ace Bailey's camp and picked him at number 5 anyway. And I respect that. Utah needs talent, so swinging for the fences by drafting the most polarizing player in the class is well worth the risk. As for Walter Clayton Jr., I couldn't love the potential fit more. There is some concern about the logjam of young talent Utah has, but Clayton is a plug-and-play scorer at the next level. The Jazz walked away with an upside swing and the best guard in college basketball. Not bad at all. Another one of my winners of this draft, solid A for the Utah Jazz. MF, what says you?
Slight disagreement, but you're on the same wavelength. This is an A minus, but I will give them the kudos. And you know what? Good on Utah. Ace Bailey was demanding, saying, "I don't want to go to Utah. I'm not going to Utah. Don't pick me on this because I'm not going to show up." And they're like, "Oh yeah, okay. Here's our card. Welcome to the NBA, kid. Now what?" I love that. I love it that they called the bluff, and now he's stuck. There's nothing that they can do. There's nothing he can do about it now. So that was a ballsy move from them. And then for Walter Clayton Jr., yeah, that's a very good pick. Solid A minus. Nothing more to say. We got one team left.
And that team is the Washington Wizards. And they had 3 selections, and they selected Trey Johnson out of Texas with the number 6 overall pick, Will Riley out of Illinois, and Jameer Watkins from Florida State. MF, your final grade of the night goes to the Washington Wizards. What do you got?
They overloaded and front loaded on the first round draft picks because they got multiples. However, it felt the same way like the New Jersey with the Brooklyn Nets earlier in the night when they had the first 5. I kind of felt like they could have moved around a little more. I think they could have done a little better, even though Trey Johnson and Will Riley were the right picks, in my opinion. Watkins is in the second half. I don't know. I think it's kind of more of he needs to improve defensively, and he also needs to improve shooting wise because he's only a career 32.5% 3-point shooter. You need to be at least 35-40% in order to really do some damage in the NBA. So I kind of feel like it's an okay pick, but nothing that would make me say, wow, I can only give this a solid B for my final grade tonight.
The Wizards were one of the biggest losers of the draft lottery after dropping from the second best odds all the way to pick number 6. Still, Washington managed to come away with one of the best pure scorers in Trey Johnson, who was one of the best pure scorers in college basketball. The Wizards also traded back from 18 and drafted another upside swing in Will Riley, another player with pure scoring ability. And I'm a fan of what Washington is building for the future. Slight disagreement, A minus is my grade for the Washington Wizards. And with that, we put the bow on this 2025 NBA Draft Recap edition of TXN Sports World. We want to thank you all so very much for tuning in as always. Of course, normally tomorrow night it would be the Cerebral Smack Talk, but here's the thing. Tomorrow is the 4th of July, and with all due respect, we're going to be taking this weekend to ourselves. So for this week only, we will not have the Cerebral Smack Talk. We are going to bypass the Cerebral Smack Talk for this week because of the fact that it's the holiday and it's also a taped show. So we're just going to bypass it. So with that, we will next see you on Tuesday night for Ridiculously Raw, and it's a big one because we are going to have our review of Monday Night Raw from the Amica Mutual Pavilion in Providence, Rhode Island. Unfortunately, we're not going to be going to that this time around because of the ridiculously expensive ticket prices. So we decided to sit this one out. Hopefully when they come back next time, hopefully they'll be better. I doubt it, but I hope it will be better. So we'll see what happens with that. We're going to review that show, which also happens to be the of course it's a busy week in the world of professional wrestling. Not just Raw, but we're also going to have NXT's Go Home show for the Great American Bash. And that'll be on Tuesday. As far as the rest of the content goes, MF and I are going to put our heads together and we'll get back to you about that. So that's, but for right now, our next show will be Tuesday night, right back here on the Tone 25, Ridiculously Raw, as we will address Monday Night Raw and NXT, which is the Go Home show for the Great American Bash. So until Tuesday night for Ridiculously Raw, this is Anthony Florio here for Good Old MF Michael Fletcher, and in spirit, Michael Bullock. And of course, always and forever, our First Lady, Dee Dee Woodson. You know the routine, everybody. Thumbs up. Talk to you later. Yeah. Throw it up Fortune 4 style. Bye for now, my friends. God bless. Be good to each other. Have a blessed, safe, and happy 4th of July weekend. And until Tuesday night for Ridiculously Raw, you have been watching the TXN Sports World 2025 NBA Draft Recap Show right here on the Tone 25 on YouTube and StreamYard.com. For everybody who has been a part of this one, for now, Anthony Florio, so long, and bye, everybody, bye.